Okay, go back to the conversations you were having in the lunch line, but start writing it down. What's exciting, what's challenging, what's the question? Where do we go from here? What's next is the idea. Thank you.
At this table, we thought that we should make a move to put up to 12 units in the International Residential Code out of the International Building Code, which has a bunch of unnecessary safety requirements which actually don't make the building safer, they just make them more expensive. 1 hour fire separation. We don't want to have an enunciator, which is a thing that connects to your fire department and costs you $100 a month. I live in a triple decker that has that. I pay for it every month. It makes me really mad. We want to eliminate all parking requirements statewide. We want to eliminate owner occupancy for accessory dwelling units, which I think Maine is about to do. New Hampshire is not. We would like to take away from CSX, which is the railroad company, which was formerly known as the coastline, the Atlantic coastline a million years ago. Anyway, they own your railroad and they're not behaving well. We want to take it back as a public transit object. We want to convert height limits in your code to stories. And the reason this is important is because if you have a height limit of 35 feet, which is pretty common in the little towns I work in, that makes your floor-to-floor height squashy, unpleasant. And you have to go and get a variance or a special exception, and your neighbors holler about how you're going to shade their vegetable garden. So if you just say you can have 3 stories, you're good to go. And we want to make sure that you pass single stair buildings, which is another kind of wonky building code thing. And you know, one of the things about single stair is most of us don't work in places where you're going to build a big building anyway, or a building that has more than 12 units in it. But it's a marker that says this is a thing that we can do and no one will die. It's a place to start that conversation with your local fire lads. Anyway, that's what we thought.
Thank you. I think we have a table here that's ready to share.
Okay, we spent quite a bit of time talking about whether there actually is a housing shortage. That kind of got us started talking about investors buying housing and Airbnbs, large underused or empty housing. And then when we moved on to what would make a difference, one of our advantages is that we're a small state, and our decision makers are accessible. So getting their attention, showing up, having the conversations, the way Maggie put it is inserting ourselves in the room where the decisions are made, and I think that's a big priority. And then we talked about the growth zones where we already have infrastructure, making sure that our zoning is adapted to expand those growth zones. And we called it for smart growth. Anything else?
Like at least 10 people under the age of 35 to go and demand things.
That's it. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks, guys. Yes, represent.
Hi. The first thing we talked about was turning 295 in Portland into a boulevard, and oh, cool, great. And using that regained land for mixed-use housing and commercial. The next dream we had was upgrading Downeaster tracks to make rail travel to Boston competitive or more appealing than bus or car travel. We talked about ideally having that be less than 60 minutes. My friend here suggested 45, but I talked him down. And another idea we had was exempting apartment buildings from being defined as subdivisions, but requiring conversion of apartments to condos to go through the subdivision process. And the final thing that we talked about was just converting defunct malls into mixed-use housing.
Thank you.
I love getting rid of 295. That's the thing I actually want to do, because that's the one that is near my house. The Gorham Connector business was just like a secret way to start the project. So if anybody else wants to get rid of 295 through downtown Portland and make it a boulevard, let's talk. Also, we desperately need in this state to link our transportation dollars to our housing goals. Right now, we have a bunch of folks running around talking about how we can cure congestion. I don't give a shit about that. But we do have a housing crisis, and the only way we're going to solve it is if our transportation funding helps solve that crisis. We do have a bill that's carrying over to next session, LD 287, that is to target that specific problem. So if anybody wants to work on that, let me know. We also have a bill for a land value tax, which didn't get all the way this term, but what we really need is a city that's interested in that idea, that can tell the state, hey, we really want to do this, and it's you guys who are getting in our way. You're talking about home rule, but we're a home rule municipality. We want to be able to implement this policy. Let us do it. You won't even let us have the option. So if there is a municipality that's interested in a land value tax that can help with redeveloping parking lots or vacant and blighted buildings in your downtown, and right-size the taxation problem that Allison talked about, talk to Sam. And my other reflection about this is that numbers don't lie, but they don't win either. Like, we have all the best data, we have the beautiful numbers, we have the perfect facts, we have the smartest people, and we get our asses kicked when we don't have great stories, when we don't have great relationships, when we don't have big allies, when we don't have the resources, the funding to get the money, to get the power, to get the respect, to get the bills passed. It's a little Kim reference if anybody caught it. So that's what we need to focus on for the next term, is building up that power base.
Okay, we spoke about so many different things. All of them were great, and we only got to write down about a handful of them because we didn't know that that's what we were supposed to be doing. So we spoke about a code review for pro-affordable and pro-housing, just reviewing the code so that we're not intentionally adding things that make housing more expensive and unnecessary. We love the idea of planned neighborhood developments that already include density and bonuses, no minimum lot size, so that if we do green development somewhere else, it's already built into the formats. No more sprinkler requirements for single-family homes or 5 units or less. No parking requirements, single-stair buildings, second homes taxed at a higher amount for out-of-state folks. Or in-state folks, too.
Taking a little bit of a different tact, I think we're not planners or policy people, but we had a great discussion. I'm a homeowner in Casco, which is a small rural town in the Lakes region, and I was pretty opinionated during the comprehensive planning process for Casco a couple of years ago, and observed something, which was that a lot of the ideas that we've heard today are rightfully developed for more urban areas, and the language being used, some of the specifics fall flat in rural parts of Maine, where there are actually a lot of things that are required or would be highly beneficial, particularly from a housing standpoint. But when there is plenty of land, and there is a need, there is essentially no public transportation, there is a need for cars, the argument for people to live in historic villages and historic town centers has to be reframed. And so our specific was really just, I'll use the term, reframing some of the, classic, I'll use the term, new urbanist ideas for inherently less dense and more rural areas. And I think it would be beneficial not just in Maine, but in lots of, I originally from Connecticut and grew up in a small town and different places like that. I'll just finish and say, I think that when you pitch some of these in language that sounds like it was developed in an urban context, you're going to lose the audience in your first sentence before you get to talking about why it might be relevant to them.
I want to be respectful of giving us time to walk back for the 1:30. We will take photographs of these. If you can make sure that what you've written down is legible, that would be awesome. And I'm going to wrap up by sharing with you something I've never said into a microphone before. When I think about housing, I would like us to start talking about the buffet style of housing, meaning everybody gets to go through the line and get one house. After everybody's got a house, and if you still need a second house, you can go back through the buffet line and get another one. So unattainable, but that's my goal as we talk about the buffet style of housing. Everybody gets one first. And thank you all. This has been fabulous.